Dr. Roger Murphy, welcome to the DIY Detox Summit.
Well, thanks, Bridget. I'm delighted to be here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I was on your recent fibromyalgia summit. I was very impressed by your expertise and excited to just get to know you. You have just such a great, caring energy you bring to this complicated space as well. So I wondered if you could just tell our viewers a little bit more about who you see and what you do in your practice.
Sure. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I'm a board certified chiropractic physician, board certified nutritional specialist, and I've been in private practice for, I can't believe this, 29 years. It's gone really fast. For the first part of my career, I specialized just in hands-on chiropractic care and had a real large practice here in Birmingham, Alabama. But that practice started to change over the years because I got really interested in functional medicine about 20 years ago. And then right about that time, I started getting referrals for what I call medical misfits. People have kind of been everywhere, tried everything, or really were just, kind of discouraged with conventional medicine. And I started getting these fibromyalgia patients. And pretty soon, that's kind of where my practice went. I wrote a book in 2003, Treating and Beating Fibromyalgia Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, and got asked to lecture really all over North America because there really wasn't a lot of information out there about fibromyalgia at the time. Still not enough. And so my practice has really evolved from hands-on chiropractic to now telephone practice. I work with patients all over the world, helping them navigate this thing called fibromyalgia.
That's awesome. Yeah. So fibromyalgia, as you discussed, is kind of a syndrome. There's probably lots of people undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, that kind of a thing. And really, from what I learned from being a part of your summit, it's really like lifestyle management to get it under control. So many aspects of lifestyle. We're going to cover several today. But we're going to focus on sleep and how to get a good night's sleep and why it's so important. So, the theme of this summit is detox, and your brain does detox when you sleep. I think we know, intuitively getting a good night's sleep just feels good. But could you tell us about what's actually happening when we sleep?
Sure. I mean, just for those individuals who don't know much about fibromyalgia, because there's a lot of people who don't either, maybe not heard the term or not familiar with it. Fibromyalgia is a collection of symptoms that people have in common. So the number one symptom is diffuse, achy, sometimes disabling pain, all over pain, poor sleep, which we're going to talk about, fatigue, irritable bowel, restless leg syndrome, low moods. They have a kind of a laundry list sometimes of different symptoms that show up underneath this banner of fibromyalgia, which affects about 10 million individuals in the United States, and it's primarily women. 98% of them are women. And what I've learned from working with this group is that there's some key things that if you get these key things right, it can really turn them around. And one of those things is getting them detoxed, because what brings on a lot of the problems we see with chronic illness, whether that's fibromyalgia or type 2 diabetes or Alzheimer's or several of these different conditions, is just getting toxic over the years. And I know you've got people on here that are sharing information about lymphatic drainage and infrared saunas and parasite cleanses and things that you can do on your, which they're all great. I mean, they're great. But in the fibromyalgia community, you got to be careful if you try to be too advanced, you try to be too aggressive in some of these detox procedures, whether they're doing it on their own or working with me or another practitioner, it can backfire. So I really start my patients, the number one thing I look at is making sure they're getting deep restorative sleep.
Okay, yeah, I think it's great too. I just interviewed Dr. Peter Kahn. He was talking to me about the importance of just having stable blood sugar, and that's part of our detox system needs stable blood sugar. So we also need a good night's sleep. We really do need it, and a lot of people do struggle with it. So tell us, the $1 million question is, how do we get a good night's sleep? It seems so evasive sometimes.
Yes. So how do you do it? I mean, because I think, I wouldn't say everybody, but there's certainly a large percentage of the population that really struggles to get enough sleep. I think, a lot of people kind of have this misconception that, you're just supposed to burn the candle both ends. And, if you do that, that you're some type of human dynamo. You're not supposed to complain about sleep. You really don't need it that much. But what we've learned is that deep restorative sleep is key for optimal health. If you're not getting deep restorative sleep, you increase your inflammatory chemicals by 40%. So
Wow.
because of that, you're going to have pain. I mean, you're going to be at risk for pain. That's what we see with fibromyalgia. The other thing is if you're not getting deep restorative sleep, your pain threshold is lowered. So what we see with just again using the fibromyalgia community is they have a low pain threshold because they've gotten run down over the years. And what happens is when you go into deep restorative sleep, your pain threshold is raised, and so your pain actually goes down. But if you're not getting deep restorative sleep, you see your pain threshold go up. Pain threshold go down, and pain goes up. Obviously, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, you're not going to have the energy that you want. I mean, you're going to be run down, tired, sleepy. If you're not getting a deep restorative sleep, you're more likely to feel anxious or depressed, have low moods. You're more likely to have irritable bowel syndrome, more serotonin receptors in your intestinal tract than you do in your brain. And one of the things that happens with deep restorative sleep is you're replenishing your neurotransmitters, including serotonin, which is the happy hormone. But to tie this in with detox, how does sleep affect detox? Well, it affects it in a very pronounced way. And this is something that we've just learned in the last few years. We think about, when you go to sleep, it's a time to rest. And obviously it is. It's a time for your body to repair itself, for the body to have that 8 hours, hopefully 8 hours, to where it can have the rest that it needs, and to be able to release the chemicals like human growth hormone, DHEA, and other chemicals that the body needs to perform at optimal levels. But what we've learned in the last few years is that when you go into delta wave sleep, that's the deepest sleep possible, that's the third wave. Once you get into that deep delta wave sleep, your neurotransmitters, these brain chemicals that are firing, these nerves that are firing, they turn off. And when they turn off, your blood flow to the brain slows down, and it signals the cerebral spinal fluid to pulse into the brain and to flush out all the toxins that build up in our brain. That's really the best way and really the most effective way to get rid of these toxins that build up in the brain is by getting into that deep sleep and allowing that pulse sensation where the cerebral spinal fluid is then being released in a wave. And then what it does is it not only releases or flushes out these toxins, but it helps to reset your neurotransmitters, which are these brain chemicals, which are for, whether you're happy or not, so like serotonin, which is the happy hormone, or dopamine, which blocks pain, or norepinephrine, which gives you physical and mental energy. Without this deep sleep, you're running the risk that this flushing mechanism is not working correctly, and it's one of the things that sets up deficiencies of the neurotransmitters and all the illnesses and conditions.
Yeah, I've just been reading more about what the brain does at night, and there's a little bit on here with Dr. Christine Schaffner. I was reading like the synapses pull back by like 20%. So that's like the shrinkage they talk about, but then there's actually like more fluid flowing in. So yeah, it's just like, it's amazing, this wave. And I was just talking to Dr. Khan about how we can accumulate toxins in the brain and why. And it sounds scary, and there's some targeted things you can do, but look, here's the body just doing its thing, which is if you get a good night's sleep, it's actually flushing it for you. So amazing what our body does.
And I think we all kind of take sleep for granted a lot of times. I think that maybe that's changed in the last decade or so. I think people are realizing the importance of it. But once you realize just how truly important it is, then you give it the priority it needs. I mean, I think lymphatic cleanses and dry brushing and infrared saunas and, clean eating. We'll talk a little bit about that, I think. All those are important. But to me, the easiest place to start is getting that deep restorative sleep. And then, of course, the question is, well, Dr. Murphy, I'd love to get a good night's sleep, but I can't fall asleep, or, I fall asleep, but I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And so there's some things that I like to recommend, if it's okay if I share just some of these supplements you can find. Okay. So with my patients, it's a little bit different. So what I'd like to do is maybe give two different examples. So, if you're an individual who's low in serotonin, which everyone with fibromyalgia is, that's the brain chemical I talked about. But if you're low in serotonin, you tend to be a little bit low in your moods, maybe a little bit depressed, maybe anxious, have some mental clarity issues, have a lowered pain threshold, so pain's magnified, maybe feel a little bit stressed out, could be tearful, if you're really down. And those are signs of low serotonin. If that resonates with you, then what I would recommend is that you boost your serotonin by taking an amino acid called 5-hydroxytryptophan, which you can get over the counter. So amino acids are the building blocks that make the neurotransmitters, that make these brain chemicals. So 5-HTP, when it's combined with the synergistic vitamins, the B vitamins and magnesium and vitamin C, that makes serotonin. And I mentioned this earlier, but the higher your serotonin level, the higher your pain threshold, so you have less pain, no matter what's triggering the pain. It doesn't matter if it's osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis, bone loss. It doesn't matter what that pain is coming from. If you can raise that pain threshold, your pain's going to go down. This is super important for the fibromyalgia community. But the higher your serotonin level, the happier you are, the less anxious you are, the more mental clarity you have. And then I mentioned earlier, the less likely you are to have irritable bowel. The other about 5-HTP is that it increases your natural sleep hormone, melatonin, by 200%. So when you take 5-HTP, you're going to boost you're going to make serotonin, but you're also going to boost your sleep hormone, melatonin. You're kind of covering all your bases, okay? And so if you resonate with low serotonin, that's where I would start. And typically what I would recommend is you start with 100 milligrams of 5-HTP 30 minutes before bed on an empty stomach with a little bit of juice, a little bit of grape juice. It doesn't take much, about an ounce mixed with water. That'll allow it to get past the blood-brain barrier and then to be able to be converted quicker into serotonin. But start with 100 milligrams, and then if you need to, go to 200 and then go to 300. But what you should see is within 30 to 45 minutes of taking the 5-HTP, you should be able to fall asleep and sleep through the night. That is ideal. It doesn't always happen, but that's ideal. Now, some people will take 5-HTP, and instead of making them sleepy, it revs them up. And these are the individuals, Bridget, that typically are really toxic. So there'll be individuals that have chemical sensitivities, which is, who we're targeting here, addressing here. People that, when you go into like an Office Max, you can't take the smells. Gasoline smells, cigarette smells, perfumes, you get funny reactions to medications or even supplements. If you've got a sluggish liver, then you may have trouble assimilating or processing that 5-HTP quick enough, and it will actually be magnified. And then what happens is, instead of making you sleepy, it will make you more mentally alert, and you won't be able to fall asleep. If that happens, then just take the 5-HTP during the day. Take it milligrams at lunch, and then give it a couple of days. Make sure you don't have any kind of issues, and you shouldn't. Then you just take 100 milligrams 3 times a day with food. If you take it with food, it's not going to make you feel sleepy, but it will start to convert when you combine it with a good multivitamin. It will start to convert to serotonin and help with all the serotonin deficiency issues you have, but it will also start to reset your circadian sleep cycle. Now, some individuals, though, they're going to take the 5-HTP and they're going to have trouble because they still can't fall asleep. If that's the case, that's when I would add the melatonin. And I would start with, 3 to 5 milligrams of melatonin, preferably sublingual. You let it dissolve underneath the tongue, and it can go as high as 12 milligrams. Now, Christine, Dr. Schaffner, she really works her patients up. I think she told me on my summit to 40 or 50 milligrams.
Oh.
Now, I would never recommend that on your own. On your own, 10, 12 milligrams. Well, once you get higher than that, you really need to be working with somebody like yourself, Bridget, or myself, or somebody who's really familiar with this process. But typically, 300 milligrams of 5-HTP and 10 to 12 milligrams of melatonin typically does the trick to allow you to get into that deep sleep. Now, there will be some people, though, and you know who you are, ones you just can't sleep, whatever you do. For you're able to fall asleep, or maybe you'll use these protocols, but you're still waking up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can't go back to sleep for an hour or two. And those individuals, I recommend a product that I carry, and it's called Delta Sleep, that has GABA and taurine, ashwagandha, valerian root. You don't have to get this from me. You can find something similar, but the Delta Sleep is what I use for my patients, and they can take that in the middle of the night to help them go back to sleep, and it won't make them feel dopey or hungover, even if they need to wake up in 2.5, 3 hours. It typically works for them about 15 or 20 minutes after they take it. It's been a godsend for my patients.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I do get those stubborn cases, and then I get some people who say melatonin doesn't work for me. It makes me feel bad. So maybe similar to the 5-HTP, just not processing it correctly.
Yeah, some individuals just can't process the 5-HTP. It maybe give them a hangover, makes them really sluggish the next day, or they take it and it just doesn't do anything. For those individuals, I would try the 5-HTP and see how you do. Now, some individuals, like I mentioned, it'll make them more alert, but that's maybe about 1% of the people I've ever worked with. It's not that many people.
Yeah.
Some people will take 5-HTP and it will upset their stomach a little bit. And if you can hang in there for a couple of days, then that'll go away. Some people get a headache because 5-HTP is oftentimes very helpful for migraines and tension headaches. But some people, just genetically, the way they're built, the way God made them, they're just a little different. And if you have trouble taking the 5-HTP, then you could take its precursor, which is L-tryptophan. Try that instead of the 5-HTP.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I really like this specific protocol and modifications. I know a lot of my clients you don't like the idea of taking an actual hormone. They're kind of averse to that. They feel like they'll be dependent on it and that kind of a thing. So this is just like a precursor. It's like taking a vitamin. And I love that connection, to you having a better mood in the daytime or being more relaxed, kind of easing you into bedtime. Because some of the things you said happen with a poor night's sleep, like pain, anxiety. Those are some of the things keep you up, that you can't fall asleep. So now you're in a repeating cycle. So you've kind of given us a solution for day and night, so to speak.
Yeah. One thing I just would add about melatonin, I know there's a common thread out there, a common conversation about it. It is a hormone, and the reluctancy is that, you'll get dependent on it, it'll quit working, or but what we've learned about melatonin is it's one of the most potent antioxidants, one of the most potent detoxifiers for the brain that there is.
It is.
One of the few things that you can take that will cross the blood-brain barrier. We have as you know so well, we have a barrier that separates the body from the brain to keep out potential toxins. And there's only a few things that you can take that will allow you to be able to detox the brain. And one of those is melatonin. So I'm a big fan of melatonin. It's incredible for our immune system. It helps with our moods, helps with our mental clarity. It helps with our metabolism. It helps detox the brain. So, understand, and certainly do your research and do what feels right. But I have no qualms in having my patients get on melatonin and stay on melatonin for indefinitely if they need to.
Yeah, I'm the same. Sleep is so important. I'm just tell clients don't like winning some kind of award by not taking something to sleep. Like you need to sleep, do what you got to do, kind of a thing. And the body, it can make less melatonin for lots of reasons, from mold toxicity to one. There's been a lot of study, and you don't hear much about it with COVID. Like one reason they think kids, do so well with COVID relative to the elderly is because of their high levels of melatonin, where the elderly are often quite low. So yeah, it can actually be used to like help, lessen COVID severity and that kind of a thing. So it is really a powerful hormone, and doesn't have to be like a scary hormone. And I think I don't know how you feel, but as I age, like there's certain like helpers that the body likes, and if the body's going to thrive with it, I don't think there's much harm in keeping doing it, right? Because you're, like you say, you're gonna have that brain, growth hormone overnight. You're gonna make hormones naturally overnight. So lots of good things happening that you want that good sleep.
Yeah, and I'm a realist too. I mean, I think you try to do everything you can naturally. I mean, you do, but there's a time and a place, and sometimes the body just needs, it needs the help. And you're so correct. I mean, given the choice between struggling with sleep, and being exhausted and everything that goes with that, and taking melatonin, being on melatonin if you need to, I would definitely advocate being on the melatonin. I think you're just so much better off for sure. And then the other, if you get to that point where the melatonin is not working, the 5-HTP is not working, the delta sleep's not working. I do everything naturally, but there's a time and a place. And sometimes sleep medications, it's got to be the last resort, because sleep meds increase your risk of death by all sources by 500%.
Oh.
That's what the studies are showing. Not to scare you, but just, but now if you're taking a sleep med and you hear that, now you need to be looking for some other options. If you can find some.
Yeah.
Melatonin, the 5-HTP, and delta sleep, or something like that. If you can do that in place of the sleep drug, and sometimes initially you have to do both. But what I want to encourage my patients is, as soon as they can, to wean down on that sleep medication and use the naturals. And again, if that means that they're on melatonin and 5-HTP or some other natural things, and they can get off Ambien, then that does them so much more good than anything else.
Yeah, I think you can't overlap like that. And yeah, just full disclosure, I've been sharing because it's just how I had a concussion 5 weeks ago. Right away, I couldn't sleep at night. Right away, and then I tried everything natural, nothing would work, and I really needed that sleep. I needed to because your circadian rhythm that's just one more reason your circadian rhythm gets off but I needed it. So I'll try to get off like a pharmaceutical, and it doesn't work still. So I just go back on until the time comes where I can be off. I'm just not quite there yet. So, I might get some comments on it. It doesn't matter. There's a time, right? You need to go to the ER. You need antibiotics. There's time and place for everything, just like you said. But I think even people who are using pharmaceutical, they do want another option. They just haven't found it yet. So part of it is, everything. I love this delta sleep. I love just things that are a combo. So you talked about different ways to combine B's and C's and different herbs. And I like combos. I think then it's a little more gentle. Do you have any other tips with diet or lifestyle that you think are important for sleep?
Well, I think sleep hygiene is super important. So making sure that you're turning the lights down as you get closer to bedtime, 2 hours towards bedtime. You should really be in dim lights or using those blue. I had some sitting out here, but they're really these funny looking glasses, the blue blocker glasses, I think are very, very helpful. They block the blue light. Anytime you encounter light, when it reaches the pineal gland, it sabotages your melatonin. But what raises melatonin is darkness. And what lowers melatonin is the light. So first thing in the morning, typically your cortisol level is at its highest and your melatonin level is at its lowest. And as the day goes on, what you're seeing is your cortisol level gets lower and lower and lower. Your melatonin inches up, and towards, gets later and later, 10, 11 p.m., 12 o'clock is when it's at its height. And so anything you can do to prevent yourself from sabotaging your sleep, the bedroom is for intimacy and to relax. So you want to read and that kind of thing, but no TV. You definitely don't want your computer in there. You don't want to be working in there. Get your phone and your tablet and all that. If you can read on a tablet, which is not ideal, but get those, there's apps that you can use, or the blue blocking glasses. And then when you finish, get your tablet and take it out of there. I recommend you turn your Wi-Fi off at night, because electromagnetic fields. So there's several sleep hacking things you can do. The sleep mask, I think, are really, really helpful for a lot of my patients.
Yeah.
Block out blinds, total blackness, darkness. Certainly having a good mattress. Temperature, temperature should be down ideally about 68, which, it sounds kind of chilly, but definitely a chillier temperature is conducive to a good night's sleep.
Okay, those are great tips. Yeah, I've been wearing a sleep eye mask for about 10 years now. I love it. Like, I have to travel with it. I'm just like, it just helps me. I think that total darkness really does make a difference. Another thing I've been doing, I don't know if it exactly helps sleep, but I've been doing mouth taping. Have you heard about mouth taping?
No, I haven't heard about that.
So when you're a mouth breather at night, or probably any time, you make less nitric oxide. And I was just like, I was learning about it because someone was saying the importance of like learning to breathe through your nose. And I'm a total mouth breather at night, but my problem is I'll get a sore throat from it. I'll just sort of wake up kind of like immune, like, because I don't know, I just don't breathe through so if you tape your mouth, you have to breathe through your nose. You use like, it's like kind of a gentle, kind of bandage tape. So that's like part of my sleep routine as well. And I really love it. I don't know if I'll have to research if it actually helps you sleep, but it definitely makes for like a better experience for me.
Sure. Some people's mates would, if they're big snorers, I'm sure that'd be helpful, right? So if you're a snorer, and maybe something that your spouse.
Yeah. And that's a whole other issue, with the, what's it called when you need the breathing machine at night? Sleep apnea. Yeah. That's a whole other issue. Do you see that, Mitch, in your client population?
Well, I see a lot of CPAP. I see people with sleep apnea, and there's certainly, that's certainly a reality. I mean, it is a real thing. I think it can be overdiagnosed. Partly, the part of how they diagnose that is when you do a sleep study. I mean, who can sleep with all these wires, attached to you?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times they've gotten away from this, not as much as they used to, but it used to be if you got that diagnosis, they put you on Klonopin, which is a benzodiazepine, which is can be a very nasty drug. So I'm not a big fan of that. But I do have patients that CPAP has made a big difference. But the majority of the patients that I work with that have the CPAP, their problem is they're carrying around too much weight. They're 20, 40, 60, 80 pounds overweight. Once they lose that weight, and I have an anti-inflammatory program, I put anti-inflammatory weight loss program that I put them on. And as they lose that weight, the majority of them, their sleep apnea goes away. They're able to get off their CPAP machine.
I agree. It's not something I've worked with much, but I would say most everyone who's on one of those machines is also overweight, and there's a connection there that probably should be explored. I know weight loss can be a tough issue for people too. So do you want to share like how you're getting people to lose 30 to 60 pounds, Roger? I'm sure people would love to know.
That losing weight is one of the healthiest things you can do as far as for detox, if we tie that in with detox, because we know that you store inflammatory chemicals and toxins in fat cells. One of the things that fat cells do is they try to sequester this unhealthy material, whether that's inflammation like interleukin and bradykinin and kinins and these inflammatory chemicals, and then toxins, excess estrogen and BPA and these things that we come in contact with. So when you lose weight, you're able to get those toxins out. Every time you're losing these fat cells, then you're eliminating the toxins. And what I've used over the last 7 or 8 years is a diet based on the HCG diet. And I developed a homeopathic, all natural product that doesn't have any HCG in it. As you mentioned, some of your people are a little bit reluctant to do anything with hormones, and so are mine. So it's an all natural supplement that mirrors human corticotropin hormone, which helps you burn this unhealthy yellow fat, which is this visceral fat, which creates inflammation. We associate that yellow fat with belly fat, increased risk of heart attack and stroke and metabolic syndrome, these other things. But using this diet and then this supplement, it increases their metabolism. So we don't know, but the guesstimation is that they're burning anywhere from 1,400 to 4,000 calories a day from taking the supplement. So they're not hungry, and they can be on a lower calorie diet, not be hungry, and they continue to lose weight. Unlike if you try to go low calorie, typically you can lose weight for, maybe a week, and then you get to where you're tough to be around, right?
You're hungry.
Miserable. You have no energy, and then your body thinks it's starving, so it shuts it down. So that's the yo-yo dieting. With this diet, patients continue to lose weight. They lose about half a pound a day. My patients will lose 20, 30. Some patients lose well over 100 pounds. Very safe way, in a very safe way. So it's been a game changer for my patients.
So anti-inflammatory diet, plus you actually invented this homeopathic HCG?
Yes.
Wow.
Because
that's amazing.
You probably had a lot of clients years ago, and HCG is still a thing,
Yeah.
But I first heard that, this was probably 10 years ago, and they were saying, oh, yeah, I'd see these patients and they're losing weight. I'm thinking, God, what are you, I'd ask them, what are you doing? And they tell me, oh, I'm getting these HCG injections, and I'm eating 500 calories a day. And I would, that can't be healthy. I mean, that can't be healthy. But as I saw my patients, having success, not only losing weight, but they had more energy, they had less pain, sleep was better, they just felt better. That's when I started researching HCG, and I would refer my patients out to local physicians when I still had a clinic, and they would do fine. But then people started complaining about having to get the shots and the cost, and HCG ran into some problems, and then you had all this overnight fly by night stuff on the internet. There was a bunch of junk that was out there. So I set out to duplicate the HCG homeopathic formulas that I knew were working at a couple of doctors I was working with. But I wanted to do it in a way that it didn't have any of those hormones in there, so that it wouldn't be a barrier to those individuals who didn't want to do something that had a hormone in it.
That is so interesting. I didn't even know this, and I'm really glad we happened upon this topic. So people can check out your site for more information on that.
Yeah, great.
Okay, go ahead.
This is something you can do on your own. You can spend a lot of money working with somebody doing chelation therapy, or there's all kind of, detoxing heavy metals, getting your amalgams removed. I mean, there's a lot of, these are healthy things. But before you spend a bunch of money doing some of the things, I would recommend that you focus on deep restorative sleep. You change your diet if you need to lose weight. You really do that. One of the things I think is really helpful that anybody can do is to try to find out if you have any underlying food allergies. And most people do. Most people have about a minimum of 6 foods that when they eat them, they're giving, these foods are giving them some type of negative reactions that they just live with. They just think, oh, it's seasonal allergies, it's my IBS, it's, I'm tired because I'm getting older, or, I have pain because I have arthritis or whatever it is. But once you do an elimination diet, and what I encourage my patients or people who read my book, I encourage them to go off all dairy, All grains except for rice. Rice is okay, but corn and gluten and wheat, barley, spelt, millet, oats, all grains go off. Soy, all artificial sweeteners, especially NutraSweet. NutraSweet is an incredible, can be an incredibly neurotoxin to people who are susceptible to it. There's been more complaints about NutraSweet to the FDA than any other substance out there. So I don't recommend you use
As I drink my Diet Coke. No, just kidding.
Those are good, but don't use NutraSweet. Push comes to shove, I'd recommend if you only have a choice between NutraSweet and Sweet and Low, use the Sweet and Low. But the elimination diet, no dairy, no grains, rice is okay, no soy, no nightshades. So nightshades are peppers, white potatoes, tobacco, eggplant, tomatoes, nightshades. For some individuals, they're real sensitive to the solenoids, these compounds that are in nightshades, and they cause pain. And the only way you know if you're sensitive to these foods that I just mentioned is to go off of them for a month and then add them back one at a time every 3 days to see if you have a reaction. Now, what you will oftentimes see is, you add a food back, no problem. But you may then 3 days later add another food, challenge another food group, and then it does trigger a reaction, whether that's a loose bowel movement, stomach pain, nausea, headache, lethargy, achy pain, especially with the nightshades. If you're sensitive, you tend to have pain in your extremities. Excuse me. So pain in your hands and feet, knees, elbows, that type of.
Okay, so that's a whole group. You're counting one. How about egg or gluten? Do you have people? Well, gluten would be in the grain. Do you have people off egg or no?
Egg is okay. Really, if you want to go a little further, that's more advanced. I do have people do that in a more advanced elimination diet.
Okay.
Sugar, dramatically reduce your sugar. Do the best that you can.
Okay.
More advanced part of the elimination diet is to eliminate caffeine, which can be, that can be rough. And the way, if you want to see if caffeine is a real problem for you, and it is for a lot of people and you don't know it, what you don't want to do is go cold turkey. You do not want to do that. Patients, Bridget, they're having 10 caffeine doses a day. So 10 different caffeine hits a day, whether that's 2 cups of coffee and then Mountain Dew and then tea and then whatever it is. But if you're getting 10 different doses of caffeine a day, reduce it by 1 and do that for 2 days. Then you go, from down to 9, then you go to 8, then you go to 7, then you go to 6, and slowly get all the way down to where it's no caffeine. Or maybe then you switch to something that's not quite as harsh, like green tea. And you just have some green tea in the morning and that's it. But see if you do that, how do you feel? Give it a month. Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Coffee is an antioxidant, so it's not a terrible thing. I love my cappuccinos in the morning. For some individuals, it really can create some issues that they don't even know, some unwanted health issues.
Well, both tea and coffee and chocolate, they have beneficial compounds, but some of those compounds can be allergies for you or sensitivities. I did a food sensitivity test once upon a time, and tea and chocolate both came up, and I was like crying. They're like 2 of my favorite things, and I still have them, but I have them less. But I'll tell you, since I had my concussion, I have 0. I cannot. It makes my anxiety like sky high. So I can have literally a couple times I've bought a chocolate bar, and then I just threw it away so I wouldn't have, because as soon as I had it, it was crazy again. So things can change in your body, right, over time as well. And sometimes we're just overdoing it. Like if you're getting up to 10 servings, you don't need that much caffeine to get through the day. Yeah. And we really do find I run detox groups, when I had my own clinic, and people would really not want to give up the caffeine. But and this happened for me too, once you're off, your energy really stabilizes. A lot of the roller coaster is just your body expecting these certain hits you give it through the day. So you'll be surprised like how, even if you're still working on health issues, whether it's fibromyalgia or whatever, just coming off that roller coaster actually can be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I got to be careful because I can come off as a hypocrite because I certainly drink coffee. I've tried to give it up twice in my lifetime, and the second time I did it, my 10-year-old daughter, I bet her $100 that I was going to be able to come off caffeine. This was 13 years ago, and 2 days in, my wife just looked at me and she said, "You know what? Just pay her the $100."
The first few days are the hardest for sure. And I think you're right to go gradually because you can also get like a big migraine, so you can cut down. And I've also heard the advice sometimes, like, just get like whatever amounts you're having, just go down to half, like, because you need a reset because you can just go higher and higher, say you're going to have a work project or whatever. And then that happened to me during the stay at home. Like, I never drank coffee. I just drank tea. And then suddenly I discovered iced coffee and I discovered like chocolate covered espresso. I think because I was home and I was kind of restless. So suddenly I could tolerate more and more caffeine. So sometimes it's great to just like scale back and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go to my 1 cup of like nice, clean, organic coffee in the morning and just leave it there, just roll it back sometimes. And for sleep too, right? Caffeine can keep you up at night if you're not metabolizing.
Yeah, that's the biggie for my patients is just, the sleep is so important in my community. I think it is for everybody, but in my community, if they don't get that right, they're never going to feel good because their pain threshold is low, pain's magnified, they're exhausted. I just shared everything with you, everything that happens. And they got to get that right to even stand a chance to be able to start to overcome all the symptoms associated with fibromyalgia.
Yeah. Well, is there anything we didn't cover today, Roger, as far as content that we missed?
Anything else you want to ask about?
Well, I just want to, I'll comment back on the weight loss thing and then we'll hear your resources. We had maybe a mutual friend post on her Instagram how something about how detox isn't like weight loss. And I actually disagree. Like, I think they can go really, really well together. You do store toxins in your fat, and sometimes it's just the body's way of saying you're toxic. I think a lot of the weight that we're carrying around is just toxin storage carrier, right? And then we're making excess estrogen because of this excess fat we have. And it's inflammatory. The tissue is inflammatory. It's making us more prone to severe COVID. It's making us more prone to that sleep apnea, tons of stuff. So I'm a big fan of coming down to your normal weight. And I think almost in my community, people are embarrassed to admit that they want to lose weight because they think it sounds superficial or something. I don't think there's any shame in that. You absolutely love yourself as you are, and you can want to lose some weight that you gained, maybe when you weren't taking the best care of yourself, or you lived in a moldy house, or whatever happened. It's okay to have that goal, and you'll feel better. You can move better, and you're losing toxins. Sometimes you actually have to watch how fast you do it because you're going to be dumping toxins as you lose weight. So I think it's, someone like you've been in this field 30 years, like you've had experience, like if you're feeling stuck with weight loss, maybe talk to Roger, do some of the other detox things we learned on this summit. I know, like, I've seen people lose a lot of weight when they lose the mold or they lose the food sensitivities that they've had, or, so there's actually a lot of ways to lose weight besides caloric restriction or going to the gym more. There's tons of ways, tons of things to look at, looking at your hormones as well that we talked about a little bit. So there's definitely no shame in having that goal, and you will be healthier and more resilient if you can lose that weight. So yeah, hopefully we've opened your mind to some possibilities here.
Well, it's interesting because my patients, they want to lose the weight for vanity reasons. These are primarily women who over the years, their metabolism has been shot because they're not getting enough sleep. That compromises your metabolism. that can sabotage your thyroid, which is, that drives your metabolism. And they're taking medications like Lyrica, which, causes you to gain weight, or antidepressants like Paxil, or tricyclic antidepressants like Elavil. And they put on the weight and they just feel like they've lost themselves. They don't recognize themselves.
Right.
And, when you're carrying around, the heart has to pump 1 pound of fat. Your heart has to pump another 10 miles of arteries, veins, and capillaries. So you think about all that energy, that's 1 pound. Think about all that energy it takes to do that. So it's exhausting carrying around this extra 20, 40, 60 pounds. And as you mentioned, we know, that's why you have the increased risk of heart attack and stroke with this belly fat, because this fat is living tissue that's giving off inflammation. That's what it does. But what happens with my patients is they want to lose the weight to look better, and they want to feel better too. But what happens is that as they're losing that weight, their metabolism goes up, so their energy skyrockets, and their pain is dramatically reduced. So now they don't want to, they really want to lose the weight. They want to look better, but they also are so excited because they have more energy and less pain, and they feel better than they felt in so long. That's the driving force that keeps them on this diet, initially to lose that weight.
That's a great point. That's a great motivator. It's interesting how we have these different client populations when you talk to different practitioners. So my clients are usually pretty good on diet and stuff, but there's just usually like a little last 10, 15 pounds, and it's a little more complex. It's like brain inflammation, poor sleep, and they just haven't put the pieces all together that will like allow them to lose weight because their body is just inflamed and not functioning quite right.
And I don't know about you, Bridget, you probably do. You see with your clients like I do sometimes. I have patients that I'll look at their diet history and I'll think, God, they eat healthier than I do. And I eat really healthy, but I see that and I think, wow, maybe they're vegan or they've got a really super healthy diet. But then I look at all their health problems. So you can be really clean with your diet, but sometimes you're missing something that your diet is actually causing problems. And for those individuals that need to lose, 10, 15 pounds, one of the best things you can do is to do a food allergy test. Just do a test and see, do you have any food sensitivities or allergies? And if you do, go off those foods for a period of 4 to or 12 weeks, depending on how the severity of the food panel is. And oftentimes you'll see that these individuals will just effortlessly lose weight and feel better than they felt in years. And they, they had erroneously for decades thought that eating gluten-free rice cakes or, whatever it was that they were eating, it was healthy, when they look at their food allergy test, they see that it's creating a lot of inflammation and stress in the body because they're allergic to it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's just a hidden inflammatory factor, right? Just like some of the other things we're talking about on the summit, for sure. I don't know if you follow JJ Virgin, but she's a mentor of mine, and that's like one of her big premises of her diet is just take away. It's kind of similar to what you listed, these common allergens. Because you're talking about maybe that's for getting a better night's sleep or lowering inflammation, but yeah, you could drop some weight quickly with those potentially. So yeah, hopefully giving some people some ideas. So yeah, you carry some supplements, and you do private consultations all over the world, I know. Tell us more about what you do and what your main website is.
So the website is your Fibro Doctor, doctor spelled out.com, but Your Fibro Doctor, and you can go there. There's all kind of free resources, and you'll see a way to get access to the store if you want to look at some of the products and, see if you can find something similar, or if you feel comfortable ordering there, certainly, you can. But there's quite a number of videos about fibromyalgia. But the thing about fibromyalgia is, if you treat fibro, there's so many other issues, underlying causes of the symptoms that need to be addressed, whether that's problems with insomnia, sleep, low moods, balancing those neurotransmitters, repairing the GI system, so to get rid of irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, yeast overgrowth, low thyroid, as I mentioned, is a biggie in my clientele, adrenal fatigue. So all those things are on there. If you got an interest, you certainly could, check those out. The diet is metabolicprogram.com, but you can see that
Oh, okay.
learn more about it and see if it, if it resonates with you. There's no special foods that you have to buy. There's no shakes. There's no, the natural supplement that you take to boost your metabolism is non-stimulating, so you can take it if you have high blood pressure. It won't rev you up or any of that kind of stuff.
I think that sounds super interesting. I'm always looking for what the most effective thing is for my clients. So yeah, I think we gave a lot of good ideas potentially for weight. We feel like you already tried everything we talked about. Maybe this is a great place to go. And yeah, it's interesting. You used to have this fibrocyte, but all of us are doing functional medicine, right? And really, it's the whole body, it's the whole being. And I think sometimes it's just who you resonate with, and, go learn from that person. So now you know how to go find Roger. And thank you so much, Dr. Murphy, for your time. I really enjoyed the interview.
Oh, Bridget, this is great. We just had the opportunity to meet not too long ago, and I really enjoyed that. I'd seen some of your stuff online, and I really think a lot about what you're doing. So, this was really, it was a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, let's keep it up. Thanks, everybody.